Hi guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another video. If you are new here, hi, I'm Krista. I just have a lifestyle channel here on YouTube. I love taking you guys through my 20s, through my very real life. We talk everything from finances, spending habits, to health and fitness, fashion, literally everything in between. I am 27, I'm newly married, and I think it's a fun time over here. I love doing vlogs. If you like stuff like that, make sure that you subscribe and stick around. Our trip to Japan was amazing. We loved it. We're already thinking about when we are gonna get to go back. So I wanted to round off the trip, round off the series with kind of a breakdown of our itinerary and also our budget. The trip is very, very well documented on my channel. I have 3 different vlogs. So literally everything I'm about to tell you, you could probably go and watch those vlogs and see it for yourself. I also did make a blog post on my website with our full 2-week itinerary. So this trip is very well documented. It's all over all of my social media. A little bit of background on us and our trip. This is our honeymoon that we went on. We are big foodies, so we really prioritized eating, and we wanted a pretty good mix of relaxation since it was our honeymoon, exploring cultural experiences, and then I like shopping and just exploring different areas. I feel like we just wanted a little bit of everything. A question I got multiple times is, did I plan the trip or did I use a travel agent? I planned the trip 100% on my own. So yeah, it's gonna be a chatty one. Grab a tea, grab a coffee, you know the deal, and let's just hop right into it. Our trip was 14 days long, but we really had 12 days in Japan because I subtract the first day and the last day for traveling. Starting with our flight, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, but my parents live in Raleigh. And it's honestly just a little bit easier for us to drive the 3-hour drive to Raleigh to drop off our animals at my mom's house. It's just a little bit easier than finding a pet sitter that I trust and paying for a pet sitter. So we drove to Raleigh to drop off our pets, and then we flew from Raleigh to LA, and then we flew from LA to Tokyo. We flew into Narita Airport. We left on a Friday in Raleigh, a Friday evening, and we landed in Tokyo on Tokyo time Saturday at 2 p.m. So you do lose a day, at least I did, traveling from the East Coast. So definitely keep that in mind. I considered Friday kind of like day 0, like the day our flight starts, but then day 1 was Saturday when we landed in Tokyo. From Narita Airport, one of my biggest stressors for whatever reason was transportation. I was like, how are we gonna get from the airport to our hotel? And let me tell you, it was so easy. I stressed about transportation for absolutely no reason. The train system is so easy to navigate. Make sure you have Google Maps. But when we landed in Narita Airport, we decided to take the bus to our hotel because we didn't want to deal with navigating the train system for the very first time with all of our big heavy luggage. So we landed in Narita. As soon as you walk out after you go through custom, there will be bus kiosks, and you go up to the kiosk, you put in your hotel, and it'll spit you out a bus ticket. And the bus takes you directly to your hotel. They handle your luggage. I would definitely do that 100 times over because you just get dropped off at the doorstep. You don't have to worry about navigating the train system. We spent 3.5 days in Tokyo. So we had 3 full days, and then the half day is the day that we landed. To me, 3.5 days was probably the minimum amount of time that you could spend in Tokyo, but it was the perfect amount of time for me because after those 3.5 days, my feet were killing me and I was kind of ready to move on to something a little bit more relaxing, a little bit more chill. Our Tokyo accommodation was the Hyatt Regency, but I'll talk a little bit more about our hotels and everything during the budgeting portion of the video. Our hotel was located in Shinjuku, which for me was a really good central area. It also was right on top of a train station, which being on top of a train station or very close to a train station would be my #1 piece of advice when picking your hotel, because you're going to be spending a lot of time on the train. Being close to a station is going to save you a lot of time. We tried not to plan too much for our day 1 in Tokyo. We landed around 2 p.m. Like I said, it took us about an hour to get to our hotel from the airport, and then we were pretty tired after a really long travel, so we took a bit of a nap, did a little 7-Eleven haul, and then we just kind of walked around Shinjuku with no agenda. So my advice for your day 1 would be stick close to your hotel, explore the general area that you're in, and allow time to rest and recuperate. Day 2 in Tokyo, we were up up bright and early and we went to Tsukiji Outer Market, which is a very well-known, used to be a fish market, but the fish market part of it moved and now it's just kind of like a food market, a food hall, if you will. And we tried lots of delicious food. We probably spent maybe 2 hours at Tsukiji Outer Market. Then we made our way over to the Imperial Palace and East Gardens, which you can't really get too close to the Imperial Palace. So for me, honestly, this is probably something I would skip. It was very beautiful to see, but we really could only see it from pretty far away. Depending on where you're going in Japan, there are a lot of other palaces and beautiful temples that you can get really close to and go inside of, and this wasn't one of them. So for me, I feel like you could skip this. After that, we went over to Odaiba, which is a man-made island. We went here because my husband is a big anime fan and seeing the life-size Gundam was like a childhood dream for him. So we spent a few hours over on Odaiba. The giant Gundam is in almost like a shopping mall, Tokyo Plaza. So we spent some time walking around the shopping mall, and our last stop for the night on day 2 was T-Lab's Borderless, which is a digital art museum. It's an immersive experience. I thought this was really cool, definitely worth it. You do have to buy tickets in advance, which we did. We had a 6 p.m. slot, which I thought was great because we got to spend all day exploring Tokyo, made our way over there in the evening, and then called it a night. It was like the perfect nightcap for our day. We probably spent maybe 2 hours in Teen Labs Borderless, and we were ready to go home and go to bed. That is definitely one thing. We did not have many late nights because we were so tired from all the exploring we were doing during the day. Day 3 in Tokyo, we started over at a Happy Pancake. We wanted to spend the day in Ginza, so we went to the Ginza location. Happy Pancake serves the souffle fluffy pancakes, and I dreamed about them before we got to Japan. I wanted to try them so bad, and honestly worth the hype. I still am thinking about them. It was pretty easy to get in. I think they opened, check online, but I think they opened at 10 or 10:30, and we got there about 30 minutes before they opened, and they have a QR code right by the door that you can scan to get on the wait list. We got there about 30 minutes early, got on the wait list. I think we were maybe number 18 in line, and we waited about an hour. But the benefit of going to the Ginza location is there's so much to do in Ginza, so many shops. So we just walked around Ginza, did some vintage shopping, and waited for our table to be ready, and then we went and enjoyed Happy Pancake. After Happy Pancake, we continued to walk around Ginza and do some shopping. We spent a lot more time in Ginza than I thought we would, but we were just really enjoying the area. It was probably our favorite area that we got to explore in Tokyo. That is a piece of advice. If you're enjoying somewhere, just enjoy it. I think it's really easy to make the mistake of, oh, I have to check everything off the list, I have to see everything, but just slow down. If you're enjoying something, allow yourself to enjoy it, spend an extra few hours there. I think it's worth it and just makes the experience overall more enjoyable. Then we went over to Akihabara, which is the anime district of Tokyo, and just kind of walked around. There was a lot of trinket shop, figurines, things like that. Really cool, bright, lots of flashing lights kind of area. This was actually probably the busiest area we went to in Tokyo, but it was a cool area just to spend a few hours here. And this is actually where we got our favorite ramen that we had the entire 2-week trip. So I would definitely do that again. Last stop for the night, we did sign up for a bar hopping tour going around Shinjuku. So they took us to Omode Yokocho, which is also known as Memory Lane. And they also took us to Golden Gai. So a couple alleyway areas with izakayas and pubs. We went to 3 different places. One of the places was all you can drink, and you also got drinks at the other restaurants as well. Really cool to do a guided tour with a local, so you could ask them all your burning questions, get some advice. And it was also kind of a way to be social because there was 2 other couples on our tour, which was nice to get to talk to some other tourists and see how their trip was going. Last day in Tokyo, we started our day at Sensoji Temple, which is a beautiful, very large temple. It was much larger than I expected, and it's surrounded by a lot of shops. It's a busier area. The shops all opened at 9 a.m. We got there around 8, so we kind of had to kill some time before the shops opened up, so definitely keep that in mind. And then we learned about the history of the temple, did some shopping, and then we headed over to Meiji Shrine, which is quite the contrast from Sensoji Temple. Sensoji is a very busy, lively area, whereas Meiji Shrine is deep into a man-made forest. It's a very peaceful area. it felt very serene and peaceful. So it was a nice contrast going from Sensoji to Meiji Shrine. And Meiji Shrine is right near Harajuku area and Takeshita Street. So we walked from Meiji Shrine over to Harajuku area and did some more shopping, just walking around. That was a really cool area full of thrifting, I would say, vintage stores, and we had some really good tacos over there. Our last stop of the day was Shibuya Sky. I got 8:40 p.m. tickets. I have mixed feelings on Shibuya Sky. You do have to buy tickets ahead of time, so I think we bought tickets about 2 weeks ahead of time. On one hand, it was stunning and beautiful. The views, I mean, our sweeping views of Tokyo. If you don't know, Shibuya Sky is a very high observation deck, and it is open air, so you get to go out really on the rooftop basically. So don't get me wrong, it was beautiful, the views were amazing, but I think for us it was something we probably could have skipped. I think it just depends on what's important to you. Do you love those city views like that? Then you would enjoy it. For me, I was like, okay, I'd rather be down on the street, kind of in it, than just looking at it from above. That was our last day in Tokyo, probably one of my favorite days. And the next morning we were up bright and early and we headed to Ito, which is a small city on the Izu Peninsula. This is where we stayed in our ryokan. A ryokan is a traditional Japanese inn. We wanted to kind of have a relaxing leg of the trip where we spent some time in some onsens and had a really more small town traditional Japanese experience. The name of our ryokan was Hanafubuki. We took a JR Limited Express train. It took about 3 hours to get down to Ito. From the train station in Ito, which was Izukojin Station, we were able to walk to our ryokan. It was only about a 10-minute walk. We spent 2 nights in Ito. Our first day there, we had 5 p.m. massages in our room. And then we just spent the rest of the evening in the onsens, which are hot springs. And that was it. It was a really nice, relaxing part of the trip. After 25,000 steps a day in Tokyo, it was nice to kind of relax. The next morning, we woke up and we went on a hike. Our ryokan was near the Jogasaki coast, and our ryokan gave us a nice map that showed us exactly where to go. So we went and we saw waterfalls, a suspension bridge, a little fishing pier, fishing town, and we probably hiked for about 2 hours before we came back to the ryokan and spent the rest of the day relaxing in the onsen. I think 2 nights was the perfect amount of time for our relaxing ryokan stay. You probably could only do 1 night if you don't care about the hiking aspect, but I did want a day to kind of see the coastline and enjoy hiking. So 2 nights, I would say 1.5 days was the perfect amount of time. Then we headed to Kyoto. We spent 4 nights in Kyoto. This was where we took the bullet train. So we took the Shinkansen from Atami Station to Kyoto Station. Took us about 4 hours to get from Ito to Kyoto. And day 1 in Kyoto was exactly like day 1 in Tokyo. We just explored the area that our hotel was in. We stayed in the Hyatt Place Kyoto. We just walked around, explored with no agenda, which was really nice. We went to the Levi store and we made some customized denim. Anything you buy at the Levi store, shirts, jackets, jeans, you can customize with patches, with embroidery. And then we walked around the Gion district, which is home to geisha, the beautiful Japanese performers. We saw quite a few geisha. It was really exciting and they're so beautiful. We started to fall in love with Kyoto very quickly. It has very well preserved Japanese streets. It kind of felt like what I expected Japan to feel like, whereas Tokyo just felt like a really big metropolitan city. It was beautiful and fun in its own way, but Kyoto definitely has that more traditional Japanese feel. And we also grabbed dinner at a place in the Gion district called Gion Kappa, which ended up being one of our favorite eats the whole time we were there. Is an izakaya. They're all cooking in front of you. They had one chef for each station. They had a tempura chef, they had a sushi chef, they had a steak meat chef. It was really cool to watch, and the menu was very broad. They had something for everyone there. Day 2 might have been my favorite day in Kyoto. We started our day over at the monkey park. We took a taxi to the monkey park, and the monkey park is about a 20-minute hike from where the taxi dropped us off up a mountain. So prepare yourself for that. I definitely was feeling my heartbeat during that, but I just love animals, and I didn't want to go to zoos because I know that animal welfare is a little bit questionable at zoos, at least from what I've read online. So decided to skip out on the zoos and just do the wild animal parks. The animals are wild, they can come and go as they please. And then we took the bus from the monkey park up to Otagi Ninbutsuji Temple, which was probably my favorite temple from the whole trip. And from there, it was about a 10-minute walk to Adashino Butsuji temple, which is another really beautiful temple, and the walk was amazing through kind of the mountainside. And this temple has its own private bamboo forest. There was not a lot of people there, so if you kind of want to skip out on the bigger, more well-known bamboo forest that supposedly is very crowded, then maybe check out this one. It's definitely on the smaller scale. It was beautiful and peaceful. A lot of walking this day, hiking, everything. So we went home and rested, and then for the night we just explored the Pontocho area, which is a historic narrow alleyway area of Kyoto. It's right by the river. It has all the wooden buildings and lanterns, and it's just fun to kind of walk around, hop into different restaurants, hop into different bars, and walk around and explore. Some of my favorite things we did in Japan was literally just walking around, exploring, and seeing where it led us to. Day 3 in Kyoto, we woke up and we did an 8:30 a.m. e-bike tour. It lasted about 4 hours. They took us all around to different lesser known temples that were a lot less touristy. We were the only tourists at most of the temples that we went to. Again, I'm gonna keep pointing you to my vlog because it goes into a lot more detail of everything that we saw and did. After the e-bike tour, we went over to Nishiki Market, which is another food market. Tried some food, had that for lunch, walked around a little bit. Probably one of the more crowded markets that we went to in Japan, just because it is in an enclosed alleyway. And then we ended the night again over in the Pontocho area, walking around, and we went to a rooftop bar that I really loved called In the Moon. Rooftop bar overlooking the river. Enjoyed a few cocktails and just kind of sat and reflected on our time so far in Kyoto. Day 4, our final full day, we actually did a day trip over to Uji. It took maybe 30 minutes on the train to get there, and we did a walking tour. Honestly, I don't think you need to do the walking tour. I think you could do Uji on your own, but they took us kind of through the city, took us to see the Uji River, the Uji Bridge, and also to see a temple. They also took us to do a traditional tea ceremony. We did it at the Uji Tourist Center, but anyone can do it. So just a tip, you can go into the Uji Tourist Center and do their traditional tea ceremony there. I really liked Uji. If you don't know, Uji is the capital of matcha in the world. It is where they say the best matcha comes from. I love matcha. I think I'm about to go make one right now with my Uji matcha, actually. You can try matcha everything. They have matcha desserts. We had matcha soba, obviously matcha lattes, and it's definitely a more peaceful area, not as many people. We really enjoyed our time in Uji. I would say you only need about a half day because it's pretty small, but it's a really cute town. After Uji, we went over to Fushimi Inari Shrine, which is a very popular shrine with thousands of torii gates that were all donated. We didn't hike all the way to the top, but supposedly if you walk all the way to the top, it takes about an hour. This is a more popular shrine, but I totally see why. It's a really cool experience just walking through all those torii gates. The next day, we headed to Osaka. Really easy to get there from Kyoto, about an hour train ride. We spent 3 nights in Osaka. We stayed at the Caption by Hyatt, and we headed straight to Kuromon Market because we were waiting for our hotel room to be ready, and our hotel happened to be right by the market. So we felt like our hotel was in a really good location. This ended up being one of our favorite markets. I just felt like there was lots of variety. It wasn't too crowded. So we ate lots of food here. We tried the classic Osaka tamagoyaki. We tried Wagyu beef buns, oysters. We're foodies, so we enjoyed trying all the food. After we checked into our hotel, we went over to Shimita store. This was a family business where you could do a sake tasting. So they took us down into the cellar, explained all the different bottles to us, and we got to try a bunch of different sakes. After that, we kind of walked around the mall area. We went to the Pokemon Center, and then we walked around Amerikamura, which by the time we got there, a lot of the places were closed. But this is another cool kind of trendy area with lots of vintage shops. But again, our day 1 in the city, we didn't have a huge agenda, a huge plan, so we just did a lot of walking around and exploring. Day 2 in Osaka, we headed over to Dotonbori Street, which is the famous street in Osaka on the river. Really cool, really pretty. And we did do a river cruise that morning. It was like a 20-minute river cruise. It was a nice break from the heat to kind of get the wind in your face and just cruise down the river a little bit. And then we just kind of walked around. We spent probably 2 hours in Don Quixote, which is a store for everything Japan, from skincare to souvenirs to designer bags upstairs. Really fun store. Put it on your itinerary. Plan to spend a few hours there. It's definitely where you can buy all the stuff you want to take home. And our big thing for that day was our omakase Michelin star dinner. It was one thing on our plan when traveling to Japan that we knew we needed to do was an omakase dinner, which is where the chef picks what you eat, prepares everything right in front of you. They're very highly trained. So we went to Sushi Hoshiyama and had our omakase sushi dinner, which was a really cool experience. The restaurant was beautiful, right on the river. It was a really nice spot. Last day in Osaka, we actually did a half-day trip to Nara. Nara has a wild deer park, so that was the main thing we went over there to go see. Took about 30 minutes to get there on the train. We just walked straight up to the deer park and kind of walked around, enjoyed the area, walked around Nara a little bit, fed the wild deer, and spent about a half day before going back to Osaka and heading over to Osaka Castle. This was our last evening and it was the perfect way to end the trip. Osaka Castle is beautiful. The grounds are beautiful. It was much larger than I expected, the grounds themselves. So we walked all around the grounds before we headed up to our dinner spot, which was called Bluebird's Rooftop, which is a rooftop restaurant overlooking Osaka Castle. They give you a charcoal grill and some meat, and you grill your own dinner overlooking the castle. It was all you can drink. So it was just the most magical ending to the trip, sitting there overlooking the castle, reflecting on our 2 weeks in Japan. The next morning, we had to get up bright and early to head back home. We actually flew from Osaka to Narita Airport, and then Narita to LA, and then LA to Raleigh. And then we drove from Raleigh back to Charlotte. So it was definitely quite the long travel day back to Charlotte. That's another thing. In hindsight, I would have just flown us directly Osaka to LA, but I bought our original LA flight out of Tokyo. So we had to get from Osaka back to Tokyo. In the moment, I was saving a little bit of money by flying out of Tokyo. In hindsight, convenience-wise, I would have just flown us Osaka to LA. Sometimes convenience is worth a little bit more money. So that's the itinerary. I just wanted to run through it with you guys really quickly, kind of give you an idea of what we did on our trip. Now let's get into our budget, starting with disclaimers, of course. One, this was our honeymoon, so we were not doing this trip on a budget, I would say. You could do this trip so much cheaper than we did it. There's so many areas we chose to splurge on, including food and shopping. So just know that to me, this was a trip to Japan with very little limitations. Since this was our honeymoon, we did get a lot of gifts and money for our wedding. So over half of this was funded from just wedding gifts. So this didn't necessarily all come out of our pocket. I mean, we are incredibly thankful for all the generosity from our wedding day that allowed us to go on such a wonderful, magical, unforgettable trip to Japan. With all of that being said, I do think this is valuable information for someone who is planning a trip. So let's just hop right into it. I've broken it up into a few categories. Starting with our accommodations, we stayed in 4 different hotels. The accommodations were one of our lowest spends because we were so lucky to be able to pay for the majority of our hotels through credit card points. Me and my husband both have the Chase Sapphire Preferred. We both got good sign-on bonuses when we got the credit cards. So we just had a ton of credit card points to use to pay for our hotels. So for that reason, we stayed at all Hyatt hotels because that was the best bang for our points. The only hotel that we actually paid for was our ryokan. So I will tell you guys how many points these hotels costed us, but I will also tell you if you were paying for these out of pocket, how much that would be out of pocket. With that being said, we stayed at 4- and 5-star hotels, so you could totally do this way cheaper than what these hotels costed, but we didn't pay for them. We used credit card points, so that's why we were staying at these nicer hotels. Starting in Tokyo, we stayed at the Hyatt Regency, which is a 5-star hotel. We stayed for 4 nights and it cost us 20,000 points per night. So we spent 80,000 credit card points to stay at the Hyatt Regency. If you are curious, if you wanted to stay 4 nights at the Hyatt Regency, that cost would be around $1,400. So 80,000 points or $1,400 if you were to pay cash out of pocket. Our next day was at our ryokan. Ryokans are known to be a little bit more expensive. The ryokan we stayed at did have private onsens. They had 7 different onsens all around the property. We did not have one in our room. Ryokans that have onsens in your room are going to be even more expensive than what we paid. Ryokans also do include your breakfast and your dinner, so they do feed you for this cost. The ryokan we stayed at at was called Hanafubuki down in Ito, and for 2 nights we paid $866. We were able to splurge on this ryokan stay since we didn't pay for any of their hotels. This was the only hotel cost that we had. Our Kyoto hotel, we stayed for 4 nights and we spent 38,000 points. If you paid for this hotel out of pocket, 4 nights, the time we were looking was about $965. And lastly, in Osaka, we stayed 3 nights at the Caption by Hyatt. This was probably the smallest hotel room of the 3 Hyatt properties that we stayed in. And for 3 nights, we spent 19,500 points. If you paid for this hotel out of pocket, it would cost $580. Cash value of our hotels, if you just paid cash for all of them out of pocket, would have been $3,811. But this is where we saved a ton of money, and we actually only spent $866 on our accommodations for our 2 weeks in Japan. Let's hop into our biggest expense. The biggest expense for us was simply getting to Japan. This is going to vary significantly from where you're coming from. If you're flying from Hawaii, flights are going to be a lot cheaper than me coming from basically the furthest point away on the east coast of the United States. In our total flight price, I'm going to include things like checking our baggage and any seat upgrades that we did as well, but I'll break down the full cost for you. So our first flight one way was RDU, Raleigh to LA, and for 2 people that cost us $464.96. Then our most expensive flight from LA to Tokyo, we flew Zip Air, and this cost us $1,137.60. That did include the price for me to pay to carry on and check a bag. I also paid $50 to pick our seats on the Zip Air flight. It was like a 12-hour flight, so we did pick our seats for that. Then we did take 1 domestic flight in Japan. I thought it would be best to fly from Osaka to Tokyo on our way back home rather than take the train. So Osaka to Tokyo cost us $177.74. And then again, heading back home, Tokyo to LA cost us $934.71. Again, that was on Zip Air. And then our final flight, LA to RDU, this we flew Delta, and it cost us $564.96. So if you just calculate the 4 flights that got us from Raleigh to Tokyo and Tokyo back to Raleigh, our total cost for flights was $3,102, so about $1,600 per person, which is definitely a little pricey, but those are just kind of the numbers that you're looking at when you're coming from the East Coast. Some other things that I included in our final calculation, some checked baggage. I paid $35 to check my bag twice on different American Airlines flights. I paid $100 for an overweight bag on our way back. Definitely keep that in your mind. You're probably gonna need an extra suitcase or pay for an overweight bag. That $50 that I mentioned for the upgrade for Zip Air on the way there. And then on the way back, I paid $60.18 to pick our seat as well as to buy a meal on the plane. So all in all, the international flights, the domestic flight, the baggage, the upgrades, our total for flights was $3,560.15, which is by far the biggest expense for us when it came to our honeymoon and traveling to Japan. Japan is actually quite affordable, you'll see once you get over there, but getting over there is definitely going to be your biggest cost. At least it was for us. Our next biggest expense was restaurants, coffee, food, which I budgeted $2,400 for, and we spent $2,042.52. So we came in under budget on this one. This is one that you could definitely do cheaper. We were not trying to ball on a budget when it came to food. We did multiple nice meals. We did an all-you-can-eat Wagyu dinner, and then we did our omakase Michelin star meal, which is a huge chunk of what we spent. It's actually about 1/4 of what we spent. We spent a ton of money on airplane snacks. We spent $200 on airplane snacks. Zip Air, they have an app where you can just order snacks and they bring them right to your seat. We definitely took advantage of that. We spent $115 at different cocktail bars. We spent $85 on coffee shops. Love me a coffee shop. That doesn't include just coffee. A lot of times we would get pastries or breakfast. One of our more expensive dinners was $131. This was the Bluebird's rooftop in Osaka, but it was 2 hours of all you can drink and you got a bunch of meat to grill. Our largest meal by far, like I said, was our omakase dinner. It cost us $536, which I know is crazy, but that's just what it is for this grade of sushi that you're eating. It was an incredible experience. So it was about a little bit over $250 per person for that. I want to say we had 12 courses. He sits and prepares it right in front of you. Just imagine you replace that omakase meal with a $30 dinner. We were really blown away by the food prices, how affordable everything was there. The sheet that I'm using to track this is by CoPlenty. I also use their monthly budget. I use their goal setting spreadsheet. I do have a code with them. I think it gets you 10% off. I will leave this linked down below. Getting into shopping, this is one that could have been way cheaper again. I budgeted $1,500 for shopping and we actually ended up spending $1,900. And this is because I ended up buying a designer bag that was not in my original plan, okay? It was a decision I made to buy this bag. It cost a little bit over $1,000, which was a good deal when I look up comps for that bag. In the condition it was in online, I would say you usually could buy that bag for maybe $1,200 to $1,500 secondhand, like I bought it. If you took away that bag, we only spent about $900 on shopping, but obviously that was a large expense. I bought my first ever designer bag secondhand vintage. Some other things we spent a good amount on. We spent $100 at Don Quixote. We spent $357 at the Levi's store. We bought 2 pairs of jeans, a jean jacket, a t-shirt, and we customized the jeans and the jacket. So we got a lot there. I felt like that was actually a pretty good price. We spent $155 on a pair of sneakers that I bought from myself. We spent $175 at Zara. So I would say those are probably the biggest expenses for shopping. But like I said, we were just having fun walking around and I felt like we bought not too much, but just enough. Activities, we actually spent a lot more on activities than I was expecting to spend. We budgeted $800 and we spent $950 on activities. This is another area you could save money. You don't need to do all the tours and things that we did. The activities that we bought were the Kyoto e-bike tour, Tokyo Team Labs Borderless, the Uji walking tour. You could definitely skip out on that one. Shibuya Sky. I also put our sake tasting and our riverboat cruise under activities. I was actually so impressed at the price of our massages. They came out to $140 for 1 hour massage for 2 people. I was really impressed with the price of that. In the States, a massage is like $150 per person for an hour. The most expensive activity that we did was our Shinjuku bar tour at $255. It was all you can drink at the second bar. You got 2 plates of food at 2 different restaurants and you got 2 cocktails at 2 different restaurants, which I feel like just pays for itself. So to me, it was worth it, but we definitely did spend a good amount of money on activities. Transportation, I budgeted $600 and we spent $681. Transportation is things like the train, bus, Shinkansen. You can see here how many train and Suica transactions I had. That is the IC card that you have on your Apple Wallet. You scan in the train and you scan out the train and it automatically deducts the fare. We spent $125 on Uber. When I was feeling like spoiling ourselves, we did take Uber because it's just a little bit less walking than having to walk to the train station, change platforms and all that. And for the Shinkansen, we spent $167, which was actually a lot cheaper than I was expecting. This was to get from Atami Station to Kyoto Station for 2 people. I thought that was really affordable to take the bullet train. So if you break it out, $681, we spent a little bit less than $50 a day on transportation. We were out and about, we were going everywhere, we were taking Ubers. I felt like the convenience store deserved its own category in the budget. The convenience stores in Japan are just magical. They have so many good food, snacks, souvenirs. We went there every single day, like basically every single morning. Our favorite of the 3 primary ones, which are Family Mart, Lawson's, and 7-Eleven, was definitely 7-Eleven. And we spent $157.50 at the convenience store. I just felt like it deserved its own category. So it definitely played a big part in our trip there. And lastly, miscellaneous, I budgeted $500 because random things come up and we spent $542.90. Actually, a really big part of this miscellaneous spending was cash. You do need cash in Japan, I will say that. A lot of places are cash only. We took out about $500 and it was the perfect amount for 2 weeks. We came home with, I think, $10 left over. We did it in 2 different chunks. So the first time we took out $350 and then we took out another $150 later on in the trip. So I would say start with $300 or $400 in cash if you're 2 people and see how far that could get you. Cash was for a lot of restaurants. Any of the markets you go to are going to be cash only for the most part. We also paid $18 to ship our bag from our hotel in Tokyo to our hotel in Kyoto. Most hotel concierges you can pay to ship your bag to your next hotel. It takes about 24 hours to get there, so keep that in mind and maybe pack a little bag to keep with you for that night, but definitely take advantage of the bag shipping so that you're not lugging big heavy bags everywhere. And then I had 2 transactions that I just could not categorize, one for 1951 and one for 277 question mark. I'm not sure what those were, honestly, but I feel like I did a pretty good job of categorizing all of my other transactions. So that is where the $542.90 of miscellaneous spending comes from. So with a budget of $10,000, the grand total for our honeymoon was $10,753.63. I'm pretty proud of that number. Did I go over budget? Yes. There's quite a few things that I bought and that I did that were not originally planned for. We definitely saved money by buying our hotels through credit card points. That's really important. But I also just want to reiterate that we were having a good time. This was our honeymoon. We wanted to splurge and we did that on quite a few things, on activities, on food. So you could definitely do this trip cheaper, I would think. I really appreciated when people did their budget breakdown when I was researching and planning this trip. And I'm always oversharing over here, so wanted to share with you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will link everything you need down below, from the tours that we did to my website with the full itinerary breakdown. Make sure you subscribe, especially if you made it all the way to the end and you are not already subscribed. And I will see you so very soon in my next video. Bye guys.